Welcome to the Ohio Fly Tying Guild. I'm Gary Begley. Thank you for joining us. And the guild is a function of the Buckeye United Fly Fishers, a local club, Cincinnati, and it's in conjunction with the Ohio Council of Fly Fishers International. Now, that's and of course, as always, anyone has a question, just speak up. And get myself spotlighted. There I am. Um, two flies planned, and one's a size 20, very small, and the other one's a size 4. The 4 is a crayfish, and the smaller one is just a little midge pattern, a blue bead pupa, which I'll go ahead and get started on that. Okay, I got the hook and the bead already in the vise. I kind of figured that would help me eliminate the possibility of dropping it before I got over there with it. And I always like to put things into perspective. Everybody knows how the size of a dime. That's how small the fly is. So, very good chop fly, though. I'll use 70 denier thread, black thread. Starting up there, it's close to the bead. The thread is going to be the body material. I'm going to use a piece of small wire for the rib and just a touch of superfine dubbing for similar to a collar. I'm going to come down around the bend of the hook. Oops. Come back up. Build up a little ramp here. I'm going to come back and go start building up a little bit of a taper. Come back about 3/4 of the hook shank and go back forward. I'm going to come back to about halfway point and come back forward. So that's got a pretty good little taper built up. Wrap the wire for the rib. Last turn at wire in front of the thread. Pull some tension on the thread. Break that off. And I've got just a tiny piece of superfine dubbing. Might not even use all that. That's going to work. All right, so there's our little collar. And what the dubbing I showed you, I've got that much left. Doesn't take much at all. And as far as a whip finish and head cement, tiny flies like this, I do like to use head cement. And the way I choose to do it is put it on the thread. And you do the whip finish. Just that quick and just that simple. A blue bead pupa. Now, I have used that at a I had the opportunity to go to a private trout club a little bit north of me in Ohio. And it worked great. Anybody have any questions? Not much to it. Pretty basic tying. I can tell you several of them fairly quick. The complaints I get is how in the heck do I get it on the tippet? Tell you what I do is I'll turn the at this point, if they're real small, I'll turn it up so I can see the hook eye, run a piece of tippet through, have about 8 inches, maybe a foot of tippet material and put a loop in the end of it. And then when I get out on stream, I don't have to worry about finding that little tiny hook eye. All right, so there's fly number one. Number two, we're going to size 4. And it's crayfish pattern. Fairly simple. It's a pattern by a gentleman, I believe he's in Canada. Collins. Ken Collins is his name. And this is a guild version. I'm not going to do his pattern completely. I do have some substitutions. So we will start with a TMC 200R, size 4. All right. I'm going to use 140 denier on this one. Use dark brown. And you can make these whatever color you wish. Crayfish in my area run from light brown to a dark brown to, after they molten in late summer, they're usually has a orange tint, or sometimes a real bright orange color. Now, this pattern that does not design this to be eyes, because the front of the fly is going to be up here. We're tying it backwards on here. This is purely for weight. And I like to come back about where I'm at, about the length of the dumbbell eye set for measurement. I do want it offset back away from the hook eye. That helps it ride hook point up in the water. One more time. Cross around it once and then go over top of the hook under the eye set twice and pull tight. That puts them on fairly secure. I know the majority of tires like to put a little drop of super glue there. I typically don't. And I don't have problems with them spinning around while I'm fishing. Doesn't need to be touching turns here. I'm going to go back to the barb, where the barb used to be, because I'm going to go ahead and put it down right now. I'll mash the barb down. At one point in time, I am going to run a piece of material up onto the point to keep it out of the way, and it's just much easier to release without the barb. Now, we need some antenna, and it's just 2 fibers of pheasant tail for each side. Make them about half the length of the hook shank. Spin that counterclockwise. I'm wanting it to angle down, because I might flip the hook over here shortly, and that way they'll be angled up. That side or that side. My thread counterclockwise just a little bit. I got both angled on each side of the hook shank. And I think you can see that. Yeah, they're pointing outward. Oops, get them all cut. There we go. All right, the next part I left out of the material list is a piece of poly yarn. It'll be orange. He calls this piece Antenna Plus. Like that in there. You want it to be about half the length of the antenna. Put it back. My thread forward. And I missed it. All right. At that point, obviously, I'm turned it over, and I'm going to use a piece of furry foam. This stuff comes, if you're not familiar with it, comes in a sheet like this. It's real flexible. Furry foam. I cut just a thin piece. Probably, I think this was 7 millimeters. Okay. So all I've done is taken the furry foam strip and tied it on. I inverted the hook. That's back to the original tie-in point of all the other materials. I'll end up pulling that forward. And this is why I wanted to debarb the hook already. So I can pull that up there and just leave it out of my way for now. Okay, a couple rubber legs. Rubber leg material around the thread. You get two on that side, two on this side. All right. There's my rubber legs. And I like to get a measurement for these. Go back to where it's just a little bit in front of the hook eye. That way I got some consistency between all the other patterns that I tie. Or flies of this pattern. All right. Next step. I'm going to tie in a Zonked strip. I like to keep crayfish patterns fairly small, like 1.5 inches, 2 inches long. So I'm going to use a piece of pine squirrel. Get my thread back here. Got to help myself just a little bit. I'll tie this so the hairs are pointing toward the rear of the hook, leaning toward the hook end. And leather's facing me. Careful, work around the hook point. Now I'll get this back. The other materials are tied in. Now I want the thread forward. Wrap this. Stroke these hairs back so I don't bind them down with the next wrap. This is going to look like a mess before it looks anything like a crayfish. Bring all these toward the rear. Get a few wide open turns. Stroke these down to the sides and rearward. These are going to end up being my pinchers. First body segment. And follow up to the hook eyes. Always try to get these hairs going back on each side. Of course, once it gets in the water, they're all going to shoot toward the rear anyway. As it gets stripped, cut this about where the hook eye is. That'll be the tail, heads up here. And like I mentioned, it does right hook point up. I can fall it over rocks, around rocks on the bottom. So there is a little crayfish pattern. Fairly quick. You get, once you tie 3 or 4 of them, you can knock them out pretty quickly.
That is really cool, Gary.
Oh, well, thanks. Of course, I can't take credit for the pattern itself. I did change a couple things, but yeah, that has become one of my favorite smallmouth bass patterns. because it goes all the way. It's fairly quick to tie. It goes all the way to the bottom, and I can crawl it around. I can actually work it as though it's a crayfish crawling around down there. And when I strip it, it's as though it's going backwards like they really do, and it pulls the pinchers or got some movement, but then they come back just like a real one.
It's a good looking fly.
Yep. Yep, I really like it.
What are the colors again, Gary?
Colors?
Time of year?
Depending on the time of year, they molt apparently several times throughout the year, and a lot of times they come out once the hard shell comes off. It's a different color underneath. And what I see in my streams, sometimes they're light brown, sometimes they're darker brown, and a couple different shades of orange.
Thank you.
Yep. I don't know. You guys in Australia, they may be all completely different color.
They're all the same. Most of ours are black.
Are they? Yeah. Well, right now in our local stream, there's one probably 20 minutes, just small river, probably 20 minutes from me. And I was in it last weekend. We was doing some work for the Ohio Division of Natural Resources, and I had a couple crayfish in my hand, and they was kind of a light brown. And I usually, whenever I see them if I go out in late August, early September, they're generally, the majority of them anyway, are orange. So I always tie some orange ones. Let's see. It's rust color. But like I said, light brown, dark brown. I usually put those three colors, dark brown, light brown, and orange in my box. Then you guys fish crayfish patterns. Al does.
Yep.
And Tom. All right. Well, try this one. It works really well. If you got some fish, they're going to be down on the bottom. I highly recommend it.
Nice simple pattern, Gary.
Yeah, it is. It keeps doesn't take all day to tie the darn thing, and it works really well.
Gary,
I'm sure
thank you for
Trout.
your time. It was a great fly. Thank you very much
Yeah,
for taking
yep,
the time
absolutely.
to do this.
Very welcome. Thanks all you guys for showing up. And when I started saying, I'm sure trout. I've never taken one of these trout fishing, but I'm sure trout eat crayfish.
Well, I don't know about your part of the country, but I'll guarantee you in Montana and Idaho, they sure do.
Yep. Yep.
They do in Missouri. We use them a lot on certain streams. They very effective.
Hey, Gary, have you tried tying that pattern on a jig hook?
Jig hook. No, not really. I am working on my own pattern. It's quite a bit different than that one, and it is on jig hook, jig style hook. The hook goes up. It's about a 90-degree jig, and that way I can. That should help me keep from getting it snagged on rocks.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because with that bend up by the eye on the jig hook, and you got the weight down low, it's going to be a little bit more bottom heavy and keeps the hook pointing up, I believe.
Yeah. Yep. Definitely. Yep. That's true. What I've thought. I've also thought of putting a piece of foam at the up at the head portion, so that it would kind of ride in the water like so. But I'm pretty sure that's the stance that they get in and spread their pincers. That's when, if they're fighting, if they're being aggressive. And I can't help but wonder if the fish might back off and go for one that looks easier, looks like easier pickings.
Yeah, I believe when they molt, I think they're pretty vulnerable.
Yeah, not more so. Yep. Nobody else has any other comments? I'll go ahead and call it an evening.
Thanks so much for a really great pattern. Take care, guys.
Thanks.
Yep,
Yeah.
everybody,
Thank you.
goodbye, and thanks again, Gary.
Thanks for that, Gary.
Thank
Yep.
you very much, Gary.
Very welcome. Thank you guys for showing up.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good weekend.
Yep, you too.
I know.